Welcome to the Gavel. I'm Linda Akibi. The Senate Ad-hoc Committee investigating oil theft in the country has finally submitted its report to the Senate during plenary on Tuesday, November 22nd. Now, this report was highly anticipated because it is expected to provide solutions to the damaging problem of oil theft in Nigeria. Now, the country's crude oil production, as at January 2020, stood at 2.13 million barrels per day. However, because of insistent pipeline sabotage and theft, the production fell to as low as 1.38 million barrels per day as at July 2022. So imagine the impact on the country's economy. However, the report has made several recommendations to the Senate, but it was silent on the identities of those who take part in this illegal business. The discovery of illegal pipelines recently by a security outfit may not have surprised the Nigerians. However, the sheer scale of the theft is shocking to many. Ex-militant leader Government Ekpemupolo, also known as Tompolo, had disclosed in October 2022 that about 58 illegal oil points have been discovered so far since the operation to end oil theft on the waterways of Delta and Bayelsa states began. The federal government in August awarded a pipeline surveillance contract to a security company with ties to Mr. Ekpemupolo to check massive oil theft in the region. Reports say the stealing is carried out through illegal pipelines connected to the trunk line via a pipeline and linked to a location in the high sea where criminals load crude oil into vessels and sell overseas. Nigeria's crude oil production as at January 2020 stood at 2.13 million barrels per day. However, because of insistent pipeline sabotage and theft, the production fell to as low as 1.38 million barrels per day as at July 2022. Concerned about damage and effect of oil theft on the country's revenue, the Senate set up an ad hoc committee to investigate oil lifting, thefts and impacts on petroleum production and oil revenues. The committee submitted its findings to the Senate during Tuesday's plenary session.
The country has lost over $2 billion to oil thefts between January and August this year alone, which lost revenue ordinarily would have supported the country's fiscal deficit and budget implementation. Curtailing crude oil theft should be a collective responsibility. Thereby, well-meaning members of the public must be encouraged to report illegal activities and transactions in stolen crude oil that may come to their knowledge from any part of the world. Nigeria should seek international financial collaborations to check illegal letters of credit, because this cannot be a cash item. To check illegal letters of credit used to fund the sales and the purchase of Nigerian stolen crude. As such illegal crude sale can only be transacted through the world financial system.
The committee makes some key observations in the report, most notably that there is a plethora of government entities or representatives present at export terminals with duplication of roles and responsibilities, leading to conflicting figures being churned out. Major export facilities, the Bonny and Forcados terminals, have been shut down for more than 7 months because of pipeline vandalism, and this has affected gas supply to Nigeria liquefied natural gas NLNG by 30 to 40%. The country's inability to meet its OPEC quota between January and July 2022 was due to pipeline vandalism.
Mr. President, what I'm adding to this report is to please let us implement the PIA as it is for now, even if there are amendments that will come after, but as it is. Now, NNPC is not giving freedom to those two committees that was set up, the NUPRC and the one for the downstream. If they are not giving them, as it is, I'm coming, sir, as it is, NNPC still sit as a boss for those two agencies, and that is not what the PIA is saying. The PIA is saying that those two agencies has come and they are independent, and they should be truly independent. NNPC is now a company to compete like any other oil and gas company. But what do we have? We have an NNPC that still superintend over the two committees. That's not the PIA.
Mr. President, I have had cause to interact with some people in the upstream, the leadership, to be precise. And I am surprised that the public procurement agency has continued to withdraw the type of approval you have given to this authority. And almost bordering on sabotage.
What is really happening when it comes to the operations upstream that is leading to the stealing of crude is the fact that all the agencies that are supposed to perform their roles are not doing it. Yes, technology will come in, but even with the operation of technology, and we do not have the right person standing there, the negative effect of stealing our crude oil will still continue. But I believe, first, as a parliament, let us make it mandate. The only way we will do it, to cut all the agencies, all of them that are involved, including the Minister of State for Petroleum, let them understand the provisions of the PIA.
Almost all the recommendations, we need to have timelines attached to them. Like for NUPRC to expedite deployment of strict enforcement of advanced crude oil cargo declaration solution for detection and migration of illegal movement of vehicles. They need technology. Bureau of Public Procurement is delaying the procurement process. If you go on to the tracking to fast track the upgrade of National Production Monitoring System, you'll be shocked that, again, the procurement process is delaying that. Having said all of that, we need to, first of all, attack the Bureau of Public Procurement to fast-track procurement process and put timelines to everybody thereafter. The issue of having multiple agencies supervising, it can easily be stopped when technology has been fully deployed, and it's only then we can do that. And of course, I want to note that the committee didn't say anything about the interference of the Ministry of Transport. So to add that as our recommendation.
As you know, recommended by this committee, we must bring technology to bear. It is stated in, I don't want to go into the entire report because it's bulky, but when you go to 8.10, it is stated that in Saudi Arabia, you have this real-time monitoring of the entire system. This is not rocket science. Why can't we employ the same technology in this country? We must do this. And even the issue raised by Senator Boniface about how security agencies have been compromising in dealing with this situation. When you have technology, it will put, it will put it on the spot. We will watch them. We see what they are doing. Technology will help us to tell us, will help by telling us this is what your people are doing.
One of the major problems confronting the economy today was as a result of poor management of the oil sector. And the PIB was to address these abnormalities and misappropriation. But look at the law in place. They are not obeyed. And nobody is talking. Now, Mr. President, let me just say this and conclude that Nigerians will decide as to whether they want this country to survive or this country to sink, especially those who are in power. Mr. President, look at the rate of crude oil today. What is Nigeria making out of it? We are making out of it because nothing out of it because some people are keeping the money abroad, and you say we should borrow money. Should we wait until when Nigerians start killing people and demonstrating? Where is the resources? Where is it going? Who are the people stealing oil in Nigeria? Is it the poor man on the street? Who are the people carrying crude oil in Nigeria? The law is there, the law is not obeyed. Why are we here? If laws will not be obeyed, there is no reason for Parliament to be in existence. Mr. President, there's no reason. If you are making laws and the laws are not obeyed, then what's the essence of sitting here? This PIB was to address all these problems. Today, look at both the upstream and downstream conflicting instructions. And that is what we are witnessing now.
After an extensive debate, the Senate recommends that the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, resume full regulatory oversight of all existing crude oil terminals in the country in line with the Petroleum Industry Act, and immediate streamlining of the agencies present at the terminals. The Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission should expedite the deployment and strict enforcement of the Advanced Crude Oil Cargo Declaration Solution for detection and mitigation of illegal movement of vessels. The NUPRC should fast-track the upgrade of the national production monitoring systems to enable real-time monitoring of flow station and terminal activities. NUPRC must ensure that all vessels coming into the Nigerian waters for the purpose of crude oil liftings adhere strictly with the Advanced Cargo Declaration. The Ministry of Transport should immediately withdraw its interference with Advanced Cargo Declaration on wet petroleum cargoes in alignment with the statutory mandates of the NUPRC under the PIA. The Bureau of Public Procurement should expedite all processes of procurement for the NUPRC to ensure immediate deployment of an online real-time monitoring system by the Commission across all upstream oil and gas production platforms to ensure accurate measure of production volume by the producers. Nigeria should seek international financial collaboration to check illegal letters of credit used to fund the sale and purchase of Nigeria's stolen crude, as such illegal crude sales can only be transacted through the world financial system. The 5th edition of the National Legislative Conference held in Abuja during the week, and the theme for this year's conference was Reflections on Legislative Turnover, Institution Building and Governmental Accountability. Now, several positions were put forward on the subject matter during the conference, and it was also a time for stock taking as the 9th Assembly winds down. Recently, the Director General of the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies, Professor Olanrewaju Suleiman, expressed concerns over the high turnover rate of legislators across the country, maintaining that the high turnover rate does not only disrupt legislative process and activities, but also does not ensure continuity between one session of the Assembly and its succeeding regimes. This concern was a major factor in the selection of the theme for the 5th edition of the National Legislative Conference, which held during the week in Abuja. The theme of this year's conference was Reflections on Legislative Turnover, Institution Building and Governmental Accountability.
In 2019 alone, more than 215 or so new members came into the National Assembly. What is the implication of that to that institution, where we have many new members chairing committees that are sensitive with no prior experience? These have implications for institution building. We also know that in Nigeria today, without the legislature, we are going to have big challenge in consolidating our democracy, because it is the home of deliberative democracy, where there is no power or fiat in making decisions. Everything done there is procedural and it is rule-based. For us at the Halomage Foundation Africa, we're even excited that this year we are going to, in partnership with Budget, unveil the 2022 Budget Tracker Report, because we believe that the constituency project is also a critical policy that has endured for these past years.
Some lawmakers share their thoughts on the phenomenon.
But after this, I think there should be a solution on how to stop rolling out new legislators every year. When we came in 2019, it was very sweet that we had 200 of us coming in. But at the end of the primaries, 200 and something is going out again. So you can imagine the turnover.
When you are talking about democracy, legislature provides that impetus, it provides that direction. That it's only when you have an elected legislature that you begin to talk of democracy. And that is the case that should be in Nigerian context. So turnover cannot be good. Turnover can also not be something that we should promote, even though they have different causes. Different causes and reasons for that. I have seen one of the interview questions that I've been given. Of course, I've been very careful along with my senior colleague, Nicholas Osai. We have answered some of the questions. In fact, we went beyond your questions and wrote a lot of things in order to put these things in shape, to make sure that turnover, legislative turnover, is not allowed to continue to drag the survival of the institutional legislature we are supposed to run in a democratic nation like Nigeria. So I want to urge Nigerians, especially at this critical period where we are going back to reforms, that Nigerians must be patient with their members of the National Assembly. Bring back your members. It gives you more prize than rejecting them. Re-elect your members. It helps the system.
Welcome back to the Gavel. The planned concessioning of the 700 megawatts Zungeru hydroelectric power plant was discussed in the Senate during the week. Now, federal lawmakers were clear on their disapproval of the concessioning of the hydropower plant, and the Senate has asked the National Council on Privatization and the Bureau of Public Enterprise to suspend the proposed concessioning of power plant until the conclusion of an investigation by its Committee on Power.
The House of Representatives has resolved to investigate Nigeria's Galaxy Backbone Limited. The lower chamber is to begin this investigation because it says Galaxy Backbone and the Ministry of Communications have frustrated efforts to oversight progress of the project, for which $475 million was provided for in 2018. Galaxy Backbone Limited, an agency under the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, signed a memorandum of understanding with China's Huawei Technology Limited in 2018 to provide fiber infrastructure under the National Information Communications Technology Infrastructure Backbone 1 and 2 projects, and is expected to design, manufacture, and deploy the kit that controls data movement across all ministries, departments, and agencies in the country.
Concerned that all through the execution and completion phases of the project funded by part of the credit facility, Galaxy Backbone and to a large extent the Ministry of Communication have frustrated efforts to oversight progress of the project. Also concerned that Galaxy Backbone Limited had made claims that the completion of phase 1 of the project is expected to reap revenues into the tunes of billions of naira for the government, a claim which the committee is yet to establish. Worried that whereas there has been no oversight to ascertain the level of the job done and verified claims of revenue inflow generated by the agency, there is a current bid to assess additional 328 million USD, amounting to about 126.7 billion naira of credit facility to develop the NICTIB Phase 2, which covers 19 of the northern states. Cognizance of the need to ensure judicious use of the nation's commonwealth, while ensuring government's ICT policy is implemented according to every aspect of statutory provisions guiding the execution of the project.
Following the war between Ukraine and Russia and the subsequent displacement of Nigerian students schooling in Ukraine, the House Committee on Tertiary Education has resolved to investigate and oversight the way medical students have been treated in Ukraine. The medical students who were attending universities in Ukraine before the war broke out had sent a message to the House complaining of being abandoned by the federal government, despite the promise of the federal government to relocate them to universities in Europe to finish their studies.
If it is the law of the country, we shall examine it for the best interest of the country and the profession itself. We are also concerned. After all, we are also human beings. So we wouldn't want to be treated by an unqualified physician. We are very conscious of that. But at the same time, just opposing this with the situation the students find themselves in, we must be thorough in our engagement so that if we are making our report, we'll be very sure and certain that we are doing this, that justly and from position of knowledge, not just to assume.
The House of Representatives has urged the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank of Nigeria to immediately stop any outstanding payments to Webb Fontaine until an investigation of his activities from 2006 to 2022 are completed, as the country cannot continue to pay for services not rendered. Webb Fontaine is the manager of Nigeria Customs Service digital platforms, responsible for the provision of IT and telecommunications infrastructure for Nigeria, and encompasses the delivery of custom management systems nationwide via the Nigeria Customs Integrated System. The House agreed that since the company could not consistently and adequately provide services for operations of the Nigerian customs, to block revenue leakages, the federal government should stop payment for work not done.
The House is aware that Webb Fontaine Nigeria Limited was engaged in 2006 to provide services to Nigerian Customs Services in the area of IT deployment to make the operations of Nigerian Customs effective and seamless in order to block leakages and increase revenue. But there are lots of hiccups in its operation, which has resulted into losses to the federal government and stakeholders at the port of Nigeria ports. Note that the widespread report of network failure, also known as downtime, which sometimes lasts for more than 4 days, is a regular occurrence, leaving freight forwarders with humongous backlog of double-age, thereby trapping thousands of containers in the process. In times like this, freight forwarders are rendered helpless, and even banks are unable to transmit information about duties collected on behalf of federal government. Note that with dismay, the federal government has been paying Webfontaine yearly for services not rendered, without taking into cognizance the frequent downtimes. Disturbed that the Dubai-based company is reputed to operate without complications in Dubai, while it subjects Nigeria to gross inefficiency with impunity. Further disturbed that while Nigerians lament about their losses, Webfontaine bears no responsibility, no apologies, no explanations, despite being the cause of the poor epileptic services.
Let's take a look at some of the major activities in the House of Representatives during the week.
1399.
It's an intervention the Senate wants the executive to comply with quickly. A halt of proposed plans to concession the 700 megawatts Zungeru hydroelectric power plant in Niger State.
Fund the construction of the Zungeru hydropower plant.
During Thursday's legislative proceedings, a federal lawmaker, Senator Yahya Abdullahi, informs his colleagues that the National Council on Privatization, the Bureau of Public Enterprises, and the Ministry of Power, in compliance with provisions of the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, have kicked off a process to concession the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant. The sponsor of the motion has reservations on the planned concession of the hydropower plant.
Senate notes also that the Senate's intervention at this point is further underscored by the need to ensure accountability for the huge annual budgetary allocations made to the project over the years. The issue of managing unsettled external loans tied to the project.
Federal lawmakers, including the Senate President, support his stance.
Once that plant starts running, we're supposed to start the repayment. Who is going to do the repayment? How do they generate the money? They will fall back to the federal government.
It's better for the executive to listen to us because we are not going to support this concessioning. And even if someone tries to, we will just reverse it. We're not going to accept this. The public loses too much.
The upper chamber adopts 2 resolutions to mandate the Committee on Power to investigate the circumstances under which the Zungeru hydroelectric power plant is being concessioned, to urge the National Council on Privatization and the Bureau of Public Enterprise to suspend indefinitely the proposed concession of a Zungeru hydroelectric power plant, pending the conclusion of the investigation by the Senate Committee on Power.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Meanwhile, the Senate has approved the promissory note program and bond issuance to settle outstanding claims and liabilities in the sum of 21 billion naira to Yobe and Taraba states as refunds for the completion of road projects in their states. However, the Senate is stepping down the request of Kebbi State government to settle outstanding claims because the state government failed to appear before the committee to defend its claims in respect of the projects. The upper chamber is now sending another invitation to the Kebbi State government to appear before its committee on local and foreign debts. This is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.